This is going to be a long one, but I did a Patreon poll and long involved build videos won out over episodic part 1, part 2, part 3 videos, so we're going long, folks. Hello there, this is Greg Johnson Making, and today I'm making my bedroom into a spaceship. Ford and Arthur stared around them. "Well, what do you think?" said Ford. "It's a bit squalid, isn't it?" Ford frowned at the grubby mattresses, unwashed cups, and unidentifiable bits of smelly alien underwear that lay around the cramped cabin. "So, we're making a squalid, cramped cabin for a short film that I hope you've seen." As I've said more than once before, as a lifelong fan of Red Dwarf and Alien and all things industrial sci-fi, Outland, that's a good one, this is the end of a lifelong dream for me of constructing a spaceship set out of forklift truck pallets and bits of ribbed piping and conduits. And because forklift truck pallets are hard to transport, as we will discover later on in this video, and film sound stages aren't free, I decided that our bedroom was big enough, certainly big enough to build a cramped cabin in. But let's get on with the build, because as I say, this is a long video. We're going to build a console, that's the biggie, that's the kind of whole first half is the console. A miniature Vogon set, because I incorporated some miniature scenery into the movie, that's our intermission. Then we're going to make a girder, a light panel, a light bar, a cupboard, some wall dressing, and some walls to put that dressing on. Very quick advert, on my Etsy shop I now have Squared Owl t-shirts that a couple of people have asked for, Vogon poetry prints, and a very limited run of these Vogon quote picture frames if you want a piece of Vogonship for your very own. I think that's probably enough intro, so let's get on with it with a traditional pull down. I use most of these bits, not all of them, because I've been saving up these boxes for a long time of things that look like Spaceship to me. I've got the bottoms of toasters, water bottles, a wind-up picture toy, and some giant water pistols. I've got a gochujang lid, some pill packaging, the feet off a Christmas tree, sushi packaging, biscuit packaging, old boxes that used to contain film slides, a vintage IKEA Ziploc bag, water pistols, and so on. You know, that kind of thing. Water pistols, or super soaker. Once you get past a certain size, the water pistol event horizon, it becomes a super soaker, doesn't it? So yes, I like splitting toys in half, as I said in my last video. So this is sort of a wind-up charity shop toy thing I found, and I'm taking out the switch so that the switch will remain functional. So this is, I'm going to call it blocking. I'm laying out my bits to find the shape of my console. Why do I need a console? Because we have a cramped cabin and the script demands that Ford Prefect has to look around with a lit match and look for a light switch. The set isn't big enough for him to walk around. So I thought, oh, we should have to look through a load of switches and labels and dials to find the light switch. These red lids, I'm delighted to say, were in the free help yourself bin at Scrap, our local plastic junk and scrap place, and I did help myself and I kept them, and they were for this, it turns out. I'm using those as my base, so that's set my width of my console, and I'm just laying out all my bits of milk carton lids, ice cream lids, gochujang boxes. This is an old kitchen timer that looks a bit like a speaker, various calculators, a whole mess of calculators, and the 3 windows from a toy helicopter, which will have pipes coming out of them. Then the sides are the flimsiest bit of chipboard that I own, but I'm going to hold it together with horizontal, I'm going to just hold it together with horizontal beams of this chunky square dowel, or batten. I think this is batten, not dowel, because it's too big. And you know, I could use right angle brackets, I could do all sorts of strong, wise carpentry things, or I could just screw one screw straight into the end of the batten and that's enough. So this thing is flimsy and wobbly, but it's quite satisfying how flimsy it is at first, because every time you add another strut, it gets more and more solid as you go. I'm really pushing the looks flimsy and rubbish on the back, but the final outcome looks good ratio. It's a shell. It's a mere shell of a thing. But aren't we all? If you want to add thin plastic things to other things, add little tabs of wooden batten or dowel. Anywhere I need the, in this case, a paint roller tray, anywhere I want to fasten that onto the frame, I just add a tab of wood that I can then screw into with wood screws. This is a gochujang lid, which I think is Korean, spicy paste. Very nice. Freehand in it, nice fresh blade, and cut out that screen, because we're looking for chunky, round-cornered screens. Retro tech. Fallout kind of thing. If I was going to make a Pit-Boy, I would use that, but that's a whole other thing, whole other universe. Then this plastic white thing is an old IKEA drawer, makeup drawer organizer, and I'm filling one of those holes with a calculator, which I've coloured in very roughly with a chrome pen. However, these calculator buttons can't have earthly numbers on them, so they all need either sanding or covering, which is a bit of a pain, but we just want lots of buttons. Hot glue, it'll do. Always satisfying to attach a potentiometer or knob. A step bit, you just keep going till the hole's big enough. Very easy. And these are little sink overflow caps that I really like. To cut out this square, just drill 4 small holes, then I use my little table saw to cut between those holes. And because those lines were neat but not super neat, just tidying them up with some cable tie. This is sushi packaging, just nice gritty food packaging. I've got bags and bags of this stuff, which I'm sticking onto this paint roller tray using super glue and carpet tape. This is a nice detailed chunk of the Proton Pack Neutrona Wand Ghostbusters gun from the 2016 Ghostbusters remake, I would say. And again, just fastening little blocks of wood on the inside so I can drill through this flimsy plastic and it will be held on in that way. Anywhere that needs covering, I think this is an old bit of shop till, and then this is the off side, because I know the shots I'm going to film, so like with my Vogon ship in the last video, the far side is much less detailed than this side, because this is the 2-camera side. A ham box, ham packaging, buy some ham, and it might have these lines in. It's squishy plastic, you don't really need to do this, but I'm just filling those ridges with some coffee stir stick in case they get crushed in. Didn't need to do that. And then again, attaching with super glue and carpet tape, and then pressing it on there by also sanding it with some wire wool. So it's 2 birds for 1 stone, which just 2 birds for 1 stone. Bargain. Biscuits, I think. Or cookies. This is biscuit packaging, and each box, again, really crunchy, really thin plastic, but they just have these nice rectangles of grid in there, so I'm cutting out one of those to use on the side of the console. The red lids, which I love them because they were free, have a raised bit in the middle, and I want this to be completely flat. So again, I'm just freehanding cutting out that raised panel, and then I'm blocking it over with this thin sheet of plastic that I've had for years. I don't know where it came from, but it's mirrored on the back, which is fun. Seems a shame to use it when it can do that magical thing. Holding it on with some nice, I think these were from a garden centre, they're little flat square nuts and bolts. Hold on the front with 1 pair of pliers, tighten the nut on the back with another pair of pliers, and then on the other side of it, this grey thing is, I think, used to contain film photo slides. So yeah, the only reason that food packaging, in this case the lid of some dates, is a bit of a liability is it's so crushable and hollow you have to fill it with stuff. So this is just a little strip of chipboard, super glue, carpet tape, and I'm using flat-headed brass screws, which I decided were acceptable. Phillips head, not so much. Again, for this keyboard hole, just drilled 4 small holes and cut between them, and it was fairly neat, just running a sharp blade along there to try and tidy it up a bit. But then this is just a coffee stir stick or a tongue depressor or a craft stick held on with split pins just to tidy up that line, and this is an orange plastic handle off that orange toy thing. ColecoVision, the Smurfs game, might be worth a fortune, I don't care. But feel free to let me know if it is. Thank you to dear buddy and patron Jeff, who gave me those ColecoVision cartridges. I finally used them for something. Cutting out that window just because it's a load of plastic which just adds extra weight, so you may as well remove it. That's the front of the crumb tray off our old toaster. Nice detail. Like it. More food packaging. Can't remember which food. Let me know below. And then to make an angled box which is going to have a light in at the top, I'm just cutting this storage box in half diagonally. Again, freehanding it. Pretty loosey-goosey here. Really trusting my skills. This plastic tray, again in the free bin at a charity shop, just to help yourself, it was like a document tray that has these keyboard holes in. So I thought, what's the simplest way of aligning these letters? Just traced all those holes onto a piece of grid paper, took a photo of it on my phone, brought that into Photoshop, made sure it was 25 centimeters long, and then just put a letter in every window. Printed it on yellow paper, laminated it with an old document folder held on with clear parcel tape, super glue to hold the keys onto the back of the key plate. It's wonderfully primitive, and that's why I love it. Some people, just hypothetically speaking, might suggest that I need to get a 3D printer, but I would say that a person painting a landscape isn't doing it because they forgot to bring a camera. My, aren't we saucy when our bags are packed? We've started watching Downton Abbey. Can you tell? It's great. Stick a bit of wood on the back, because I realised that Tom can't punch these buttons because they're made of paper and sellotape, so I'm just using vinyl tape to attach a thin bit of wood to the back so that he can poke them to his heart's content. So at this point I decided that it made strategic sense, before assembling the main body of the console, to have a quick prime time. So that's my overall body paint job. Grey primer, some silver, patches of olive drab, the kind of military green that I did my Ecto goggles in, flicky spatterings of black, and I've got a seafoam green. It looks like white on there, but actually it's quite a bright minty green. So everything has this very textured paint job, which hopefully breaks up the shapes and just complicates things and makes them look a bit more weathered and interesting than they actually are. And once that's dry, we can assemble. So again, it's hot glue on the back. Sticking those keys onto the back of that box, and it just looks fine on the front and janky on the back, which I love. This speaker, again, is a Travel Connect 4 set mounted in a gochujang chili paste lid. And I'm just using some black paint to cover up the overspray where it's a bit silver. And then filling that in with, this is a placemat, I think from The Range, which is a nice budget British homeware store. Why's that funny? I don't know. Using, again, not for the first time, nor will it be the last, this textured leather stuff that I put around the edge of my Hitch-Hiker's Guide to cover this ice cream lid and make a panel of knobs out of milk carton lids and these little drawer label holders. This alien alphabet I found online, printed on yellow paper, mounted on bits of card with sellotape, and the idea is that I'm going to paint over all these labels so they're hard to read, so Ford Prefect has to, you know, peruse them, has to scour them with his match to try and see which one of these is the light switch. Turns out none of them. Back to the paint job, as always, running along the edges with a silver pen, running around the shadows with a black fine liner, bit of gold, don't paint right to the edges so the gold pen looks like it's all flaked off. And this can be very heavy-handed because I know this is going to be shot in extremely low light conditions, and I just want it to have a lot of strong shapes. For example, this green and red strip that I'm putting on the switch, that really pops on screen. That's a real moment in the film. I'm being sarcastic, it's a small detail you can't even see. This IKEA Ziploc bag. I think I bought some wooden puzzle pieces in a charity shop and they came in this bag, and I love that minty green grid. So I'm cutting out a bit of it and then I'm just using chalk pastels to put a vignette on a bit of card for this screen. I'm going to change this in a bit and you'll see why. That's a teaser so that you stay tuned. Squared owl. I know squared owl when I see it, that's not Patron. Reattaching that switch, and it does work, and it was worth doing because it's just a lot of fun to use. And then attaching everything, as I said before, with flathead brass screws. I mentioned in the last episode, my Vogon ship build, that the 3 windows of the big helicopter would be used as set dressing, and I'm using these as tubing ports. So pipes will be coming out of those 3 holes. Just a bracket mounted onto the lid from some dates, because they're the same shape. Visual logic, that's called. Probably. And then to attach the green knob milk carton lids, they're just a split pin, a brass split pin, split on the back, and then cover that split with hot glue. Assembly! It's time for assembly, children. So I'm just screwing these into the struts, strutting my stuff, and just finding wood that I can screw these things into. Or if I can't find any, or there isn't any, I'm adding some as before, just to hold on my big super soakers, and using my cable cutters just to cut off the sharp ends of all those screws on the inside, because somebody will gouge themselves, well, say somebody, me, will gouge their hand open picking this thing up. There I am, mopping my brow. Drama. It's heatwave week here on Greg Johnson Making, but I want this on record and known, if only for my own posterity. It's Monday. I began this project last Monday, and in a week I've made that, and this console. 3-day project, 3-day project, and 1-day crafting day with my buddy Chris project. which is pretty good. So it's going very well, very, very productive. Anyway, that's not why I'm doing this. So it's the end of Monday 2. I'm very happy with the assembly. There are a few more gaps than I thought. And when you see a gap, on this project anyway, you just fill it with a... Yeah, how many calculators have to die for this project? 4. Quick edit, it's 5 because there was a tester one. And bless every one of those calculators. Thank you for their service and their sacrifice. I don't think it is a sacrifice. I think they're being promoted. They're being elevated to sci-fi prop. Their only problem, as I said before, is that they have Earth numbers on them. So I just printed out on some sticker paper a few grey and a few white to match the keys of the calculator. Let's do one of those fancy YouTube edits where you click and the thing changes. Very good. It can't be clean white. Everything has to be spattered with dust and grime. You could cut out your own triangle of wood, but why bother when you've got a bag full of wooden shapes? So rather than having these keys be flat, I'm just mounting them on a little chunk of wood, which I'm covering with aluminium tape so it's silver. Not that you can see it, but I can. Attaching it to that triangle and then clicking the keys in place. Another keyboard. This was a £1 computer keyboard from a proper jumble sale, and I just want that block of numbers off the end. So I'm removing each key, sanding them, and these are colour buttons. Some ancient blue enamel paint. Get rid of that, and that's going to be my key window. Keyhole. Buttonhole. Also wrong. Panel. Aperture. The light. I see the light. So a major, if not the major beat of this scene is for turning the lights on. So I've got this old lamp, again just from a charity shop, but there's a big bit of ceramic stuff around the wire. Simplest way to remove something ceramic is carry a bag, then wrap it in an old hoodie and smack it with a hammer. Satisfying. And always be careful with sharps. You want to wrap them up with great care, otherwise some poor bin man is going to cut himself. Least you can do. As with my Lovecraftian resonator, I'm using a kitchen utensil holder. You know, this is a nice brass coloured one, and then this is kitchen drawer liner, which just has a nice diffuse. Oh, using the grinding disc on my little table saw for the first time to cut some metal, which it did very nicely, cutting the feet off there. And then onto the bottom of this box that the light is going to be mounted into, I'm just tracing out my light window and cutting it out. That edge can be kind of quite raggedy and raw, so we're going to tidy it up with something quite clever in a minute. Save that bit of painted plastic, so I will use it in a bit. And again, this storage box is pretty bendy and flexible, so attaching a wooden strut across, screw in either end, and that's also the thing you attach the light cage to. This edge is a bit gnarly and hand cut out, so I'm using that rubber stuff which is car door edge trim. It's just a U of rubber that's a bit sticky on the inside, so I thought that would be useful for tidying up the edges of things. Vimto cordial. This was a plastic bottle of dilute that wasn't quite big enough, so I've just slit it down and made it big enough with 2 bits of cardboard tube and some split pins. And then I'm capping off the ends with, these are large Christmas tree baubles that I textured on the inside with glue and sanding years ago as part of a feature film proof of concept short I made for a feature film that I wrote and storyboarded, and it was a thing you wear on your head, and I just wish the script had been good. Then I would have a feature film script. Well, I've got a feature film script in my back pocket, but that's about werewolves. The space one with the head squid thing that reads your mind, the script wasn't very good. But I finished it, and that's the achievement. Holding those half domes in place with a bit of UV resin, and then just put the lamp through a hole in the back, hot glue, flat but very bright light bulb, and there's your light. 2 holes in that strut, and just hold the metal cage onto those with cable ties. Tidying up the edge with an old bit of, you know, that metal strip that you put across the threshold of a room to tidy up the edges of your carpet. That's the bit of plastic I cut out from the middle of the box. Attaching this kitchen timer, the underside of which looks like a speaker, for the second time, and then, no, it's still wrong, take it off, put it on again, because it was angled that way and high up, so obviously it should be angled that way, the same angle as the light. So put it on low down, put it on high up. It was wrong, turn it around. If something's wrong, you got to make it right. Calculators. I have more backs of calculators going spare than you've had hot dinners, so just attach one of those. Then these are more split pins covered in hot glue. But what are they holding on? One of them! And that's going to have a pipe coming out of it. Update. We're nearly there with the console. I wasn't going to put any light behind the little grid screen, but there's sunshine bouncing off that mirror onto the back of it, and that light looks nice. So let's add some fairy lights. Fairy lights? More like schmary lights. Let's get another charity shop lamp, wrap it in a hoodie again, smash it. Then I'm going to replace this screen with a much thinner bit of paper so the light will shine through it better, using chalk pastels to make a vignette, and then setting those chalk pastels with hairspray, because it felt nostalgic, because it's what we used to do at school. Attach that lamp behind that paper screen with a cable tie, then just need to lengthen this wire so I can put the switch up in a higher place, do some very rudimentary electrocraft. Yes, I am bad at it. Then I thought, well, what's the easiest way to make both these lamps be turned on with the same switch is just put the switches next to each other and stick a bit of tongue depressor covered in silver tape across both switches. So you push that and both switches turn on, because that's easier than doing a circuit where they're both on one switch. Yeah? Come at me, bro. I realised that because this thing has two lamps in it, I should have done this on the bottom as well really, but I'm just blocking in the top with black cardboard and drawing pins, just to stop light from pouring out of the top of the box and revealing that it's just a hollow box, it's not a machine. Then finally for the console, tidying up these edges on the light with the last bits I had of the drinking tube that was the arms of Chippy the wood chipper. So I only had these two bits that were just long enough, so I'm holding them on by just putting a bit of string through and tying it on the back. So they're held on with string, but they look nice. And a final weathering, very wet, very runny, really, really heavy-handed. Just running down, we're thinking Red Dwarf, Alien, kind of confuse all the different separate shapes and unify them into one big chunk of industrial gunk. And would you believe it's already time for an intermission? For this short I was determined to do some set extensions using miniatures, so not green screen and not CG, but a more old-fashioned way of doing things. So these are Gundam action figure display stands, bought two of them so they'd be symmetrical. I'm going to make a door out of various cup lids and just do this in as much of a one-day project as possible. These are all book covers, just hardback book, backed cardboard, MDF negative offcuts from laser cutting, sticking those on, stippling them all over with black paint and Mod Podge, and then plastic shims fit exactly into those rectangles. So I use shims as my panels. These are futuristic skirting boards, I guess. They're bits of pound shop picture frame, a large cable tie, and then this is studded suede banding as a row of rivets. My door, as I said before, food packaging needs to be backed because it's too squishy, so I'm just putting corrugated cardboard in the back of, I think, a yogurt lid, then a coffee cup lid, then a chili sauce lid, and just stacking them all together to create a big bank vault style door. Going through my box of circles for a disc, that was a mini base, but I ended up using a big button, I think. Few half rivets around the chili sauce lid, and some super glue and baking soda just to give it some crusty texture. Another button, and then a snap fastener as the wheel. Thought it should have a big hinge on it, so this is a bit of food bag, and then just cut down a screw as the middle of the hinge. There's my face. Quick little public service announcement. Not only should you not use hot glue when you're working with food packaging, but don't even set it in the sun to dry. I just primed this. It's okay because this is a kind of dented, weathered set, but all around this edge, just from the sunshine, the details have started to melt. So it's flimsy stuff, but it's cheap. Yeah, a bit meltier than I'd like. So I've just cut off the rim from I think this was sandwich spread, just to tidy up that edge. Using screen door repair tape to make a nice mesh. I like everything to have metal mesh on it, like safety glass. Then these stanchions are just knockoff Lego, boot Lego. Also some boot Lego steps, just little steps with mesh tape diagonally to create like a diamond metal pattern. And then Jack, again, thank you for giving me some Warhammer pieces. Just scraped the eagles off the top. Put in a couple of giant staples as the handle. This is the bottom of a bingo pen, the node off a mega block, and the filter off a bag of coffee. This is a fire extinguisher made from a soy sauce bottle, a Lego gun, and a little Warhammer pipe. Take a small fan, superglue a child pirate to it, then attach a teddy bear eye grommet, and you're well on your way then. I mean, you've really done it then. Make cables out of old hair ties and stick them into various holes where cables look like they should go. Gunmetal from TT Combat. I promise when you buy your own bottle of gunmetal, it will be in focus. It's not the paint that's out of focus. It's not the paint that's at fault, it's me. Thank you, TT Combat. A heavy dry brush with gunmetal, but then stipple. Stipple, you know, we're not trying to fake an airbrush, we're trying to get texture in there. This is green contrast paint that I'm just spattering on with a toothbrush. You don't really see it, but I like to get colour in there. I don't like things that are all just silver and grey and black. Bit of soft tone, quick shade, a nice blue from TT Combat for my toolbox, and just super gluing a small chain in place so that it looks like it's a heavy chain. A couple of dots of hot glue and super glue to attach all these crates. Do you see these in the final thing? No, but I love these little Lego pliers. Didn't do anything to it other than paint it. That's a USB port box or something, and a Lego frying pan, because they're cooks. You definitely don't see that in the finished thing, but I love it. I wasn't much of a miniaturist before this channel, but I do see the appeal of making small things that look big. That's why I now do it here on YouTube. Why am I explaining that? 2 sets of absolutely cheapo, like wedding favour fairy lights that I just stuck through all those holes, and look at that. Isn't that nice? And finally, for the miniature set intermission, those Gundam display bases come with a set of stickers of numbers and just hazard stripes, so not using those felt strange. I decided that hazard stripes are a universal language all across the cosmos. And that's how I made the photos with which we did the set extension in the final short film. But back to real-sized life. Greg? Greg? Thanks, Greg. Calm down. This is the girder. If you know the Iron Brew advert, you'll know that I'm tempted to say girder in a Scottish accent. But that's the one time I'm going to do it. I'm not going to do it again. I'm feeling even smugger than usual because this cardboard right angle stuff is some packaging I saved. We bought a wall mirror and it came with this really chunky, heavy duty right angled cardboard, and I thought that's going to be useful, and it was useful for this because it makes this incredibly thin chipboard, which are just the back panels off an old bookshelf, look thick at the edges. And I'm attaching them with these cable tie rivet things that are maybe my new favourite thing, although they're not terribly strong. But it's a T-shaped cable tie you put through from the back, and then you put the front over it and snip it off. They're an upgrade from split pins, but a downgrade from a metal nut and bolt. Covering over the joins between those bits of cardboard packaging just with little tabs of EVA foam, then making big detail sort of bosses out of these cheap paint palettes. I was one short, my wife had some. It's not quite the right size, but in the words of Laura Kampf, every defect gets respect. I've been using that a lot. Every defect gets respect. I accept it, I embrace it, that one of these boss things is slightly bigger than the other ones. Started by hitting all the white palettes just with some black primer out of a rattle can, then a layer of Mod Podge and black paint, very stippled, just want to get layers and layers of stippling onto this stuff. Wood glue, green paint, black pepper and tile grout. This is some chunky stuff, and I made 3 or 4 cups of this. Dob it on, really slap it on. More, sand, grit, whatever, and the brush will be destroyed. It's kind of a green-black, so I'm just doing a dry brush once that's dry with just green on its own, because all acrylic paint, it fades as it dries. Then hitting the edges with a silver pen, because I wouldn't know who I was if I didn't do that, and a dry brush with some silver to tone down the green. You're always toning things up and then toning them down again. And then finally a skin of PVA glue, which I did a bit too soon. And once it dried, I'd smeared the silver paint around. It's fine, but it has a kind of milky, yeah. If you're going to put a skin of glue on something, do make sure your paint is fully dry. Regrets, I've had a few. I wanted the set to have a lot of inbuilt practical lighting, so we're going to make a light panel. So firstly you buy some nice, these plastic what I call bay alarm crates off a nice, I think possibly German stained glass window maker in an old school. And then you go across the back street and ask the nice lady over on the corner if you can have those 2 bits of wooden frame out of her backyard that you've been eyeing up for months. Spray painted them with black primer, and now again just stippling them all over with the same dark green texture so they've got the same metal effect. Just about enough room to paint either end. Then we're going to fill in the inside of those shelving unit frames with the bottoms of these crates. So go outside with your jigsaw, and they're all covered in gunk and horribleness, so make up a bucket of hot soapy water and give them a scrubbing. Quite satisfying, really. Same paint job again, holding those in place into the frame with hot glue. Cat. And where those aren't quite long enough, using other bits of textured crate. Just covering the join between those two panels with a giant cable tie. And then this is our old shower curtain. As I've said before, there always has to be at least one step that you absolutely can't see in the finished thing. There's probably quite a few with this. But yes, this crystalline sort of distorted shower curtain I thought would make a slightly alien pattern in the light box. So then back that with a nice big long piece of tracing paper just held in place with clear parcel tape, because that will do. And then I bought this light rope off Amazon, warm white, because I wanted it to have its own yellow tint to it. Put a strut of wood across the top and the bottom, attached it up and down with cable ties, and then just put an extra bit of wood across the middle to hold them in place. Snip off the cable ties, and you've got a very simple light panel, which we actually had down in our living room for a few nights before the shoot, and we'd put it on every night like a lamp. And I kind of miss it, you know. That was the light panel, this is the light bar. I knew this old tower fan would come in handy. That's why I put it in my mum's loft 25 years ago. Sand it down, fill that hole with a bit of cardboard and hot glue, and put in a bit of tubing, bit of cable tie, the clip off an old box for a drill, I think. Really, really crazy, like graffiti paint job. You want to really zebrify it. Black, silver, green. Speaking of green, this is the cheapest lighting gel you can get, and on screen this reads as white. The set is lit with quite a bright green light, and I think that green overpowers this green, but it still looks nice. And for this I bought some fairy lights which have a pulse, because maybe Vogon lights work with sort of glowworms, or, you know, they have a history of mistreating animals. Space cupboard! Nothing more sci-fi than a cupboard. Now it's really time for these free red lids to shine, but I don't like painting plastic very much, so I've covered the middle with a big piece of black cardboard, and I'm covering the edges with black masking tape. Or you could cover the middle with another placemat, a table mat, just a bit of black mesh. These are bits of yoga mat, some more sushi packaging. It's just techie things that aren't particularly motivated, they just look sci-fi-ish. Bit of silver pen down the edge, and some more leftover cardboard right angle, and using those cable ties. They're not very strong, these did break, but then I did knock it off a table. And for the top of the cupboard, this is a bit of EVA foam floor mat, which I'm putting into a box lid. Again, thank you to another neighbour of ours. Because I'm a bit of a sticky beak and I'm always peering out the Velux to see what the neighbours are doing. Oh, she's got a bit of wooden frame, that's nice. There was a good lamp out there the other day, but that's already gone. Our other neighbour, directly opposite, he was clearing out his garage. So I went over and I was like, hey, you know, if you've got anything, it sounds crazy, but I'm building a spaceship set, and if you've got anything like, maybe, you know, those plastic lids there, like, you know, if you're going to get rid of that big pile of box lids there, those plastic lids, for example, just if you're getting rid of those, they're just in your way, you know, I'd be happy to take them off you, those plastic lids that are there. And he said, what, these plastic lids? Oh yeah, those plastic lids, could have those. So just, if you don't need the plastic lids, I'll take them. I'm willing to take them and use them in my spaceship set. Do you remember Hitch-Hiker of the Galaxy? So the plastic sets look... I've had a coffee. I haven't got walls yet, but I know I want to dress them. These are two little LED lights. They're quite nice, you can turn them down. And I've got some spare ones. So I'm covering them with the diffusion plastic that comes with them. Then a bit of that kitchen drawer liner. Then butter lids. This is round one of me praising my wife. I said, I want to use these butter lids for my light surrounds, but I've only got the one. She said, well, just take the one off the butter in the fridge and replace it with a bit of foil or something. You know, I love her, she's great. More on that later. Freehanding this, bit of a raggedy line, but I'll tidy it up off camera, that's none of your business. And always nice to find a reason to use these edge bits off floor mat tiles. So I'm just filling in around the edges of these flimsy butter lids. Mod Podge and glue, I think the Mod Podge helps it hold on to the plastic, does it? And then rat mesh! This is called rat mesh. For me, their last album was a bit overproduced, but if you're looking for some small gauge wire mesh, rat mesh. Then these are my just bits of set dressing, just various cartons and pots that I've saved that I think look a bit sci-fi. Dapple them all over with heavy-handed brown, black and green. Toothbrush it, get it on your hands, handle them, scrunch them up and just let the filth run down and then leave them for a day to dry, because this really needs to be heavy-handed squalidness. Squalidity? It's not a word, but it should be. Then I thought, let's see the Dentrassi. So the Dentrassi are the catering aliens who work aboard the Vogon ship. I decided they were spider monkeys with eagles' beaks, and these are Andorian feelers from Star Trek. So on the back of the bunk there's all this stuff which tells us something about the character of these kind of hard-drinking, squalid-living rock and roll aliens. Printed those out on various colours of paper, whatever paper they needed to be on, shiny paper for the photos, and also laminated them with some sticky back plastic. Bit more floor mat, double-sided tape in another one of those plastic box lids that I got from my lovely neighbour. And like every other silver thing, just take it outside and dust it with black and silver and some blue-green fleck bits. Done. It's the final chapter. These were some forklift truck pallets that were in Batley, and then thanks to my lovely, lovely brother-in-law and his van, they were outside my house. My one regret is I didn't get any footage of us putting them into the back of his van. The guy wanted me to buy 10, but 8 fitted so exactly, we had to put them in exactly horizontally so that they would fit. And it was meant to be. It's a fairly big paint job, this. Spraying certain areas with the cheapest dark green spray paint that Amazon has to offer, then a dusting of silver, and then again just this spitty blue-green can of paint that I just happened to have, which became the absolute MVP of the project. Someone online said it looked like it would give your clothes a grease stain, and I took that as a huge compliment. So yeah, just big cable ties, 4 down each side. And at one point I realised, oh, I can't do this on my own because I'm feeding it through and I need someone around the back to feed it back through to me. So again, my wife came through and helped me, and then helped me turn them to the wall, which once you've got 4 connected together, that's a problem. We've got lots of space, but we haven't quite got enough space for that. So there was a bit where it was almost horizontal, and suddenly they're incredibly heavy because there's 4 of them, and they were sort of under my chin, and I was against the wall, and my wife said, I'll push towards you, and I said, if you push towards me, you'll cut my head off, you're going to cut my head off. And I think she wouldn't have cut my head off, but she would have hurt my chin a little bit. Yes, chunky cable ties, then snip them off, and I have saved all those offcuts. I should get some reusable cable ties because they do exist, and I really got through a packet on this project. These pallets are see-through and the walls are white, so I've just got some cheap black cloth and I'm attaching it on the back with small thin cable ties so they're blacked out. Ideally you would make it in the middle of a big blacked out studio and you could light it from the outside. That's how you get that red dwarf look, but this doesn't. The back of this is a wall. Then in the end this was surprisingly solid. Once I'd screwed these struts of wood across the corner diagonally, it was a solid right angle, so it couldn't fall down. It could wobble slightly, but it couldn't fall down. Just covered that in black tape. So the reason this bottom strut, I've now put 4 struts across the gap where the light panels are going to go. The reason this bottom strut is not at the bottom is so that the half a bed base, which we're going to use as the bunk, can fit fully into the corner and be sort of built in to this diagonal corner without that going all the way down to the ground. Why is that important? It's not really, except how many centimetres off the floor did it need to be?
42!
42. Another one of my fabulous good ideas, buy a big roll of black paper, because I thought there's about 2 foot of white wall above the set, and if that was just blacked out, we can let the top of the set creep into shot and be a lot less strict about it. It kept wanting to roll up, so just scrunch it so it stays flat, and I'm attaching it to the wall with, once again, my current favourite thing, black masking tape. Thanks, black masking tape. How am I going to attach this light panel? Probably time I figure that out. So I've got a couple of these old metal shelf brackets, and those just sit on top of the plank that's holding the walls together, drill down into those, couple of screws, easy peasy. Tubing. This is my box of tubing. I have a box of wiring as well. That's very different. But these are all my pipes, and with not too much preciousness and worry and care, I'm just having fun attaching pipes to this set. I want it to feel like the guts of something, like a real industrial Terry Gilliam Brazil kind of space. which it nearly does. You know, it's all a demo. I think everything you do is kind of a demo or a tester for some imagined bigger, better thing. And now, how are we going to cover the sides of the bed? Hadn't really decided. But again, this big roll of fake leather stuff that I used to texture some of my panels and the sides of my Hitch-Hiker's Guide is just big enough to form a valance down the side of the bed, except I have to cover the end in something else. So this is just ribbed kitchen drawer liner, and I'm attaching it round this half of the bed base with some drawing pins. This is me being sheepish about how primitive it is, but you know, it's absolutely fine. Am I sheepish? I'm semi-sheepish. You know, it's all chewing gum and duct tape. Attach the lights and the Dentrassi notice board to the wall with some cable ties, and then this is my actual bedside drawer. That back needs repairing. Flip it around, attach this box into the back edges of the wood so there are no holes in the laminate. I was very careful. Then put the lid on, and the lid is held on with this old, very heavy metal toolbox, and then dress all on top of that, then rearrange that set dressing until it's correct. I could have done with another 10 pack of these foam floor tiles. I'm just using what bits I had left over after I did the top of the bunk. So this is a little tatty, scratty bit of floor, but it works out fine. So now let's take a look, filmed with a camera not as good as the one we shot the short film with, at the finished thing. Lovely, lots of fun. Yes, it's all about lighting and what camera you use, really, and what lenses, what's in focus, what's soft focus, and just light and texture. And I'm really pleased with how it winds up looking. And also sounding. A lot of the atmosphere comes from actually the sound design, which is me complementing one of my other skills. It sounds industrial and cavernous and squalid, and looks it, hopefully, too. Thanks number 2 to my wife is that matte set extension shot I couldn't have done without her. Because obviously we had the locked off wide shot of me and Tom, which I then shrunk down on screen, and I had to build the set around it, just stills in Photoshop, to which I added layers of smoke and moving lights and stuff to create some motion. But it wasn't going to work the way I was doing it. My wife, who's a much far better illustrator than me, leaned over and said, "Those perspective lines are wrong, can I help?" So she took the photo into some other software and drew out the perspective lines and gave it back to me and said, like, build your set around these lines. And the final thing I'm really happy with, but it was yeah, it was a few days of figuring it out and why isn't this working? And she saved my bacon. And I am very proud of those final 2 wide shots and the foreground elements I shot that were just really roughly painted bits of pipe and hairband and stuff, which I photographed holding in my hand on my phone in front of some green card, and then just comped them in to create what feels like a deep and crowded space, a bit like the jungles in the original King Kong. If you watch that, the light is at the back of the shot, so it looks like you're in that case a jungle, but it looks like you're in a contained busy space because you have this dark, almost silhouetted kind of foreground elements of pipes. It's not how you do these things nowadays, but I'm not that fussed how you do things nowadays. I just do them. And speaking of just doing things, the third and final acknowledgement of my wife. I noticed a phenomenon. And it's the phenomenon of many people, and it's people who are just being warm and cute and noticing that we're a nice supportive couple. But she's very patient, isn't she? Well done to Christina for letting you do this to her bedroom. You owe her one. You know, that stuff. And it made me feel a bit tired. You underestimate my wife. And women in general. And it happened enough that it made me want to mention it, because I think the automatic casting of women as the sort of arms folded, tolerant but slightly exasperated, slightly maternal towards their own partners, voices of reason, while men do exciting, fun, wacky things and women sort of allow it, We can do better. We can do better. You can almost say it demeans everyone. And just in my wife's defence, she didn't tolerate or allow or grudgingly, whatever, me turning our bedroom into a spaceship set. She thought it was cool. She helped me do it. She was script supervisor on the shoot and also makeup. And she's awesome. Here's proof of her opinion from her monthly diary comic that she does on her Patreon. This is how I remember our life. She makes us look very cute, and it's a nice way to... It's a nice lens to see your life through. I was talking about this socio-cultural phenomena of how people view a supportive couple from the outside, of the wife being sort of, oh, to a friend of mine, and talking about how supportive my wife is, basically. And they said not a lot of people have that. And I suppose I just wanted to say that more people should have that. It's a genderless observation, but if your partner wants to do something that they say, I would find this really fun and fulfilling, you might have to sleep on a mattress on the floor for 2 or 3 nights. Say yes. Say yes. Have adventures, you know. Mind you, we're very lucky we're both self-employed and we haven't got kids. So just having the cat, just filming in the house with the cat, we had a smoke machine and he freaked out and turns out he was hiding behind the washing machine. So I'm like, yeah, if we film again, which we probably are going to do, we won't use the smoke machine this time. It was a crazy thing to do, but she was super supportive about it and enjoyed it, and I couldn't do anything without her. And speaking of people without whom I would be absolutely nothing, welcome to new patrons Sushi, Mark Hampson, Stephen Parking, Anders Gustafsson, Duncan Lilly, Joe Bell and James Colton. And Sparky, Ryan Hunt, Krogger and Mel Spain. I love you! Halloweeny stuff coming up, and then who knows, maybe we'll take a trip back into the hitchhiking. Comment below if you're a Hitch-Hikers fan what scenes you'd like to see us do. Nearly forgot, if you've watched this far, the code word is disposition. Thanks very much for watching, lots of love from me, and I will see you soon. Why can I never sneeze on camera? Why does it go away? Is that stage fright?